Today we're talking about how you have to give up things that you enjoy so that you can have room in your life for things that are meaningful. And sometimes we like stuff. It's enjoyable, but it actually doesn't do us good. And I think about how sometimes, you go to the store and you want to get yourself a bag of gummy bears and a Mountain Dew, and then you think to yourself, well, I don't know if that's really the healthiest thing for me. And I guess I'd rather get a bottle of Kombucha and some strawberries or something, right? Like, would that be a healthier snack? Would that make me feel better about myself if I was eating that? Or do I want to go for the junk food? And on the surface, maybe I want to go for the junk food. But the truth is, if I really just listened to kind of my body and my mind, I don't have to really consult a science book to know what's good for me and what's not. And I think about stuff like political videos, for example. I love to watch them, but then are they really teaching me anything? Am I really learning anything? There's so much stuff out there where you learn nothing, but you're consuming content that makes you think that maybe you're getting informed in some way, but you're not really getting informed. It's more like consuming propaganda. So I think getting rid of some of that propaganda, some of those one-sided narratives that take up a lot of our time and energy, but they don't really help us to grow or to learn or to truly diversify our perspectives. Those things are stuff we got to give up. And it doesn't mean that you give up things because they're bad. It's not that they're overwhelmingly bad necessarily. They're just not really helping you. And there's only so much time. So we have to give up those things, not because they're evil, but because we just need to make room for other stuff that's a little bit better for us. So for me, it's saying goodbye to some of those habits, and that's sometimes hard, but I also think once you begin down the path and you give up some of that stuff, it doesn't stay hard. I think there's this notion that just because something is difficult, it's going to stay difficult forever. And that's not true. Once you get over, I guess, the withdrawal of saying, oh, I want to go scroll my phone, I want to go, binge watch a bunch of short videos, whatever it is. Once you kind of get through that, then you come through on the other side and you realize, I have other things I enjoy that I'm able to give my time to, and it isn't so hard because you start to see the payoff. You start to see the benefit. Like you give up the junk food, you get some exercise, and yeah, it's a little bit hard to build the routine at first, but then maybe you feel a little bit better. Maybe you can start to see the dividend pay you back a little bit as some of the good in those changes to your habits take root. And then it just gets easier. So give up some of the things that you feel are holding you back. And that is a frightening thing. It's a lonely thing sometimes. But it's also a necessary thing. And that doesn't mean that you turn your back on every single thing in your life. It's just you make a bucket list of a few things that you're going to do, and don't let the things that really matter to you be so far down on the list that you never actually have a chance to get to them while you're busy doing things that don't matter to you. I've said this before. It's like wanting to finish a video game that's been on the bucket list for a long time, and then I don't ever have time to to finish that quest in an RPG, but I have time to spend 2 hours scrolling through random YouTube videos. So what really adds value to my life? And that's something I think we all understand. It's just habit winds up taking hold of us, and kind of before you know it, we're back in the grain of doing the same thing over and over again. So for me, what I've done is I made a few things on a list that I try to do every single day. And I try to make a YouTube video, try to do some journaling, try to work on writing projects that I have going on. I make a point to get exercise, just a few things like that. And I've challenged myself to read more, to read a chapter in a physical book. I've challenged myself to read news magazines instead of getting all my news from something that's really more superficial, like Google News or some sort of clickbait kind of thing on YouTube. I am trying to be more mindful about this stuff. And I think it helps. It does. So if you're going to try to change your life, don't try to change it in really, really big steps. Just do something small and actionable, but something that you can do every single day. And I think those things add up a lot more than you realize. And it's better to have a lot of little things that you're trying to do to change your life for the better than to have these really big rocks that wind up being a heavy lift and they're just not sustainable. I also think it's interesting to talk about how sometimes when we want to do something significant, we feel like we have to put a lot of time into it. And that's not really true either. Sometimes it's better to just say, I'm going to spend 15 minutes a day reading or something like that, right? Not I'm going to sit down on my next day off and read a book nonstop for 8 hours, right? Like you don't have to do something extreme. You can just say every single day, I'm going to take a few steps in this particular direction. And then you start to build that muscle memory. You start to build the discipline. And then maybe you sit down to read a book for 15 minutes and you actually wind up reading it for 40 minutes because it actually feels interesting. It's engrossing. You're enjoying the content, right? And that's also a thing that, I think we need to read more, because there's so much content out there where people are telling you what to think. And it's always reactionary stuff. But if you sit down and you read a book, yes, maybe it tells you what to think, but it really puts a lot more effort into explaining itself. If you read a book, or you read something that's well researched and thought out, that's going to produce a different result than this 30 seconds or less scrolling through content kind of business. Everything is so reactionary. Like these videos I like to watch of, prepping and what's going on in world events, and people make thumbnails like World War III starting tomorrow kind of a thing. Well, I mean, yeah, the world has geopolitical concerns going on, absolutely. But when you're living a quiet life in a relatively safe part of the world, do you really need to be immersing yourself all day, every day in all of this doom and gloom kind of stuff? Yeah, you should be reasonable in terms of being prepared for things that can happen. You should be aware of what's going on in the economy, especially if you're interested in investment or things of that nature, because we are part of the world, so we shouldn't just hide our head in the sand. But if that's the stuff we're entertaining ourselves with, that's probably more of a character flaw than it is a strength. Because there's much better things to be entertained by than political clickbait and doom and gloom and all of that kind of stuff. I'd rather spend time watching a stream about an update coming to a future game release or something like that, or just maybe some kind of a micro learning, something that's going to actually teach me something that I did not know before. Like I've been doing Khan Academy courses, just little videos. You watch them and do a quiz, and maybe you learn something you didn't know. Like what are the 4 primary factors in economic production? Well, I don't know. I know I didn't know. I do now. It's capital, land, labor, and entrepreneurship. So, you know, maybe I would have known that if I went to college, but now I do know it. So, you know, it's a little thing. And then it's a little bit more well-rounded knowledge that I have about economic theory, and it's just 10 or 15 minutes out of my day to learn something. And that's more than I would have learned if I was just scrolling through clickbait during that time. Sometimes habits are kind of like old friends, you know. We hang on to them and we don't want to let them go. We're afraid to see the end of an era. But sometimes we gotta let them go, because no matter how much we like their companionship, they're not really doing anything for us. And as long as you're busy there lingering in the doorway hoping to not move through it, you're not going to be able to usher in new things into your life. And that's just the truth. Until we get to a point where we're desperate enough for change and for growth to actually change our pattern of living, to leave behind old friends and leave behind old habits and start doing new things. Until we get to that point, then it's always going to be like Groundhog Day. Every day you get up and you do the same thing and you hope for different results, and you wonder why is your life sort of stuck on some kind of a repeating loop. And it's because we haven't gotten desperate enough to actually want true change in our lives. So today, I haven't done anything extremely huge with my life, but I have spent a little more time reading, a little bit more time meditating, a little bit less time consuming content that doesn't make my life better, a little more time trying to be healthy, trying to be active, trying to eat well and avoid negative thoughts and avoid talking about people in a way that's harmful or disrespectful and all of those kinds of things. And sometimes maybe it's not about doing so much good in your life. It's more about just eliminating the things that are negative. And then in that empty space, good things can grow after you've turned your back on those familiar demons, I guess. In any case, wherever you find yourself, try to be positive every day. Remember, we can't necessarily choose our future. We can't necessarily control everything in life, but we can control our attitude. We can control our actions with the time that we have. So try to make every moment a moment that is meaningful, and live every day without regrets. As always, thanks so much for watching.